Hi, and welcome to the collaboration module. I hope you guys are all having a great week. This week we're going to be talking about collaboration because collaboration is, as you can imagine, extremely important. It's something that you're going to have to do frequently when you become educators. You'll be working with, when you think about collaboration, think about all the different people you'll be collaborating with. So other general and special educators, central office staff, principals, vice principals, service providers. Just think about who's on that IEP team, parents, students, paraprofessionals, aides, all different types of folks. And so it's really, really important that you have this foundation on first, what is collaboration? And then, what we're going to be talking about this week is really what does that mean for you? Like, what does collaboration mean for you? And what do you believe about it? And how are you going to go about that? So first off, collaboration is a style for direct interaction between at least two equal parties. Equal parties is really important because everybody should have a level playing field, voluntarily engaged in shared decision making as they work towards a common goal. So, we'll talk about a little bit later, and I know I teach EDSC 203, and we talk a lot about making sure that parents and everyone on that IEP team is an equal partner. So, equal partner in regards to the decision making, understanding what's going on, not just participating and being there, but everybody actively understanding what the implications of a decision are, and really engaged in figuring out in problem solving and what is the best strategy. So it all starts with you. Because if you don't understand why you're doing something, this is a great YouTube video. So I'm going to leave the link for you, and I'd like you to watch it. You might think, well, what does this have to do with collaboration? It's a YouTube video that talks about the why, how, and what. So when you're always accomplishing something in business or leadership, there's the why am I doing something, how am I doing it, and what am I doing? And if you start with what am I doing and then move to how and why, it's not going to influence behavior, because people get to the end and you think, well, okay, do I want to buy a computer or something like that? You'll see in the video. But if you end with the why, it's not very motivating for people to actually implement behavior change. But if you start with the why, if you understand what your purpose is, you understand why collaboration is important, you are treating everyone as an equal player and a member of the team, you're all there for the common goal, that becomes your why. And then it makes the how and the what a lot easier if you really are kind of speaking with your heart and you really understand, like, why are you doing something. So after you watch that video, I just want you to start thinking about, do you know why you do what you do? Why is collaboration important, and what do you believe? So if you can understand, kind of what your views are on collaboration, it's going to make the how do you collaborate, how do you get things done so much easier. So the core of collaboration is building relationships with everybody. So a couple of strategies and things to remember as you're building relationships is to first build it into your schedule. A lot of times as educators, we're really, really very busy. We have so much to do. And so it's easy to put this building relationships piece at the very end. But it's really important that you take that time to get to know the people that you're working with, build it into your schedule. If you're co-teaching or you're working with a paraprofessional in your class, build in some time to collaborate. Make sure you're on the same page. Learn interesting facts and ask about those interesting facts. So kind of start the conversation going. Keep things positive, avoid gossiping, things like that. Vary your communication. So some of it doesn't always have to be face-to-face. Communicate via email, small group. Make sure everybody's sort of in the loop on everything that's going on. If you see somebody that does something that you really appreciate, show that appreciation. Tell them thanks. Tell them that you really appreciated that. And acknowledge and praise for a job well done, something that went really well. And I talked about that a minute ago, but equal parties. So it's really important, for collaboration that everybody feels like an equal member. So in order to do that, you're building that trust. You're really listening to members, actively listening, not just, really trying to get to understand their point of view. You're remaining positive. You're asking questions. You're having that positive body language, showing that you really care what the other person is saying. Because you know what, we're all there for the common goal. We're all there, like in an IEP meeting, we're all there to develop goals, figure out strategies in order to serve the student well, in order to have positive student outcomes. In order to do that, determine what the purpose of the meeting, make sure it's identified and communicated before the meeting. Create an agenda that includes all team members in the creation, including parents. So, one of the things when I spend a lot of time working with parents, and one thing that can make them feel like equal members of the team, make them feel like people, all the team is collaborating with them, is to ask them ahead of time. Things like, how are things going? Do you have any concerns? Anything you want me to add to the agenda? Send them documentation ahead of time. If a student is involved in the meeting, which I highly recommend, involving students in the IEP meetings, talking with them ahead of time as you're creating the agenda, and trying to figure out like what's the purpose of the meeting. Ask them how it's going. Ask them if there's things that they would like to talk about at the meeting. And make them feel actively involved in the pre-meeting, as that way when they go into the meeting, there's not going to be any surprises. Everyone's going to be on an equal playing field because everybody's going to know what the purpose, why are we here, that they're going to be communicated to ahead of time. They hopefully maybe they could get a copy of whatever documents you'll be reviewing in the meeting. They will be asked to contribute to the agenda. And so it's going to make the meeting go a lot smoother. And then there's a shared responsibility, having an action planning sheet. So this is an example of an IEP team action planning sheet. So the thing that's really important, so we talked about pre-meeting collaboration. And then you go to the meeting and you're problem solving, you're developing strategies, these goals for the student, and you're doing that in a collaborative fashion. But then it's really important to have an action plan. So how are you going to get those, how are you going to manage those goals? Who's going to be responsible? Because a lot of times you get this meeting, you have this great meeting, it's collaborative, and then just things drop off. Families can get frustrated, students can get frustrated, team members can get frustrated because they don't know exactly what actions do they need to do after the meeting, who's responsible for what. There's many times in IEPs I've been in where there's a goal and more than one person is working with the student on that goal. And so it's very important, for instance, to know the other team members are working with the student on. Not because I've seen instances where a couple of teachers are working on the same goal, not understanding what the other person is doing. And for the student, I've had students actually tell me, gosh, it's really frustrating. Like, so-and-so was working with self-advocacy and doing this with me, and then this other teacher was working on this with me, and I'm trying to figure out how does this all fit together? And so kids know this, and so it's really important to come up with an action plan after the meeting. It doesn't have to be written like this, but it's important to talk about it as a team during the meeting so that you know who's responsible, when are they responsible, who's responsible, and any performance indicators. How are you going to measure progress towards particular goals? So co-teaching is something that requires a lot of collaboration. So I think it's important to talk about that here. There's a lot of information in the module this week about co-teaching and also working with other special and general educators. So for co-teaching, it's just really important to be proactive and provide for schools to provide professional development on how to do it well. And we talked a little bit earlier about providing that time in order to collaborate, make sure you're on the same page, and this is critical for co-teaching. Allow teachers to volunteer whenever possible to have these opportunities to work together. Make it a part of building practice, vision, and belief system. So really, I think it's important at the school level for everyone to be on the same page on what does co-teaching mean. Make sure you have the same vision, beliefs in regards to co-teaching, because it goes back to why. Why are you doing something? Why are you co-teaching? What are the benefits? And if you can have that shared vision and beliefs, it's going to make the how so much easier. Creating a schedule that supports co-teaching, so shared planning time, shared collaboration time, and putting that at the forefront, so not having that be at the end. And then making sure that everybody has shared responsibility. A lot of times I've seen in co-teaching where, the general educator will think, oh, well, the responsibility for a student on an IEP is the special educator's responsibility. And that's not true. You have shared responsibility. For consultation, there's a lot of team members that are on consultation basis. You're sharing resources, you're acquiring and sharing information with them. There's related service providers. There's a lot of times there's itinerant teachers. You're training staff to help students meet those goals and objectives. And it's just really important to know, like, when are these services and the consults happening, just to provide that streamline and that positive student experience. So when are they happening, how long, location, projected dates, and so that even that shared scheduling is going to be really, really important, because and a lot of times it's really hard because those related service providers are not, a lot of times they're not at the school all the time, and so it makes collaboration even more important, but even more difficult. So it takes that even more effort to try to make that collaboration really positive with those team members. I mentioned it also a little bit ago about paraprofessionals and working with them. I think it's just really important because they are a key member of, the team that's working with students. Get to know them as individuals. Find out what their interests are, respect them, invite them to meetings, treat them again as equal members of the team. Tell them, you appreciate them, that, and just respect that they have, a lot of good ideas and information that they bring to the table. Find good ways to communicate effectively, positively. Build them into your lesson plan. So ask for their feedback. Share information that's important to them. So if something's going on with the student and someone else in the IEP team, they're spending a lot of time with the students as well. So make sure that they understand and you share that information with them. And accentuate their strengths. So make sure that you tell them when they're doing a good job. If again, it's kind of like working with a student. You don't, or anybody, you don't want it to be deficit-based. You want it to be very positive, accentuating things that they're doing well and what they're good at. So what I want to do now is to talk and give you some techniques for listening as an ally. So I was mentioning earlier that communication is the key to collaborate, one of the keys to collaboration. And in order to do that, we all think about the fact that, of course, listening is very important, but how do you listen and be an active listener? So there's a couple of strategies that I want to talk about. The first is bracketing. So taking and setting aside your own judgment. So we all have views on certain topics, and so it's important to just really understand that you have a view of something and put it aside. So when you're working, for instance, I'm going to talk about like when you're working with a family. So you may not always agree with where the family is at, but putting those your own judgments aside is going to help you to be able to really actively listen to where they're coming from and to avoid conflict. Become curious about other people's perspectives. So, not everyone is going to have that same perspective. So, just be interested and curious about where that other person's coming from. Put yourself in their shoes. The second thing is to reflect. So simply stating in their words, not your words, their words, what you understood the speaker to say. It's going to make sure that they understand and feel like you've heard them. Then the other thing you can do is paraphrase. So carefully restate the speaker's message in your own words. So you can say, I heard you say that you were worried about this. you might have heard like a couple of paragraphs of them talking about like a particular story, and you can restate, I heard you worrying about your child not being able to, whatever it is. Checking perception. So empathetically making sure you understand the speaker's feelings or thoughts by asking questions. So, not just listening, but also, taking that time to first listen, but then also, asking questions. And the next thing is asking those open-ended questions. So probing questions to encourage that deeper understanding. So avoiding these yes or no questions, because yes or no questions are going to shut down communication. So it's not opening people up to continuing to talk and communicate about what their views are. And then body language. Use the inviting and comfortable body language. And probably the best example of this is in an IEP meeting. I know as a parent, a lot of times I've gone to so many IEP meetings, and sometimes, in IEP meetings, I'll get there and everyone else on the school side is already there, and they're all sitting on one side of the table, and I come in and I'm sitting on the other side, and that doesn't make me necessarily feel all that comfortable. So, doing things like sitting next to a person, making them feel comfortable, looking at them when they're talking, showing that you're interested, not, going like this, folding your arms, making it seem like you're really upset about something, having that open body language. So here's some examples. You first walk into a meeting and you think, oh, I don't like Julie, but I'm going to try to set aside my feelings and I'm going to really listen to her. So, and then you hear a parent say, my son is in special education for 3 years and still can't read. And then you could say back to them, well, I hear you saying that your son continues to struggle in reading. You can ask a parent, what thoughts do you have about goals? And then the parent might say, my son is still not reading. And they start to get more frustrated. Well, you seem to be angry about that. So you're kind of paraphrasing. No, I'm not angry. I'm scared about what's going to happen next year. Okay, well, now you're getting towards it. So really, they're talking about being frustrated about their son not reading, but they're really just scared. They're scared about what is it going to look like next year. So there's so many unknowns. And so if you can put yourself in that family's shoes or that other person's shoes and, just realize that they seem angry, but they're really scared. That's going to help you come to make sure that there's no conflict, that you can all end up on the same page for the same ultimate goal. A parent might say, my son's in 4th grade and can't read. Okay, your son's in 4th grade and can't read. So again, you're stating exactly what they're saying. And then you might want to say at the end, you think to yourself at the end, I'm going to lean in, I'm going to listen to her. So again, you're putting aside those personal feelings and you're leaning in and you're really actively listening. So what do you do when something doesn't go all that well? What happens, when things start to get heated? You think that, gosh, things are not going that well in this meeting. Collaboration is breaking down. You can reference common goals that you've created, the agenda or ground rules. You can use I messages. So instead of like you're hurting my feelings or something, you're saying, I feel upset because I think that you don't think I'm doing a good job. Or I feel, sad when that my student, can't do something. Or you can say, what I need is X. So you're talking about yourself. You're not, blame. It's not coming across in a blaming sort of way. You can highlight areas of agreement. So if you're disagreeing on some things, what are some things that you are agreeing on and trying to highlight those? Know when to take breaks. So sometimes, things just aren't going well. And, I've done this many times where I've been in an IEP meeting. I've been a parent and I say, you know what? I think we all should just take a break. And set up a second meeting to talk about this. And that's totally okay. And just knowing that it's okay to do that, it's knowing when you're at your limit and knowing when it's important to take that break. if you really want resolution, think like a negotiator. So accommodate, compromise, collaborate. So really taking that and having that focus on those things. And again, it's similar to taking a break, but having a plan for tabling the discussion. So I hope that that's been helpful. I highly recommend you taking a look at the other resources in the module, and take a look at that YouTube video that I posted about the why, how, and what. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out, and I hope you all have a great week.